Hello and welcome to the seance room, where we connect with the dearly departed and the occasional office ghost. So, still having issues trying to connect with Sue, or Suki as I call her, for her episode on stuff that have happened to her. But I figured I'd give you guys another experience story. Now, I was still married to my ex. We were together for like ages and eons and eons. And the house that we lived in was built, in the late 50s, early 60s. But the house had this weird vibe to it. Not very welcoming. No matter how you decorated it, no matter what you did, the house itself was not welcoming. So when we moved in, I had gone out to the garage to get some stuff. And as I was walking in, I saw something cross the living room. So I'm like, okay. So I called out to my then husband, and I asked him, hey, did you just walk by? And he was in the bedroom, and he's all like, I've been in the room all this time. And he's all, why? Did you see something? I go, no, I didn't see anything. So I went on my way, and the house didn't have AC, so we had fans and stuff like that, and they were installing an AC the next day when this event happened. So I went to the kitchen and I started cooking. Now, when you turn the stove on, it goes that click, 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 and then it turns on. I have a tendency to listen to music or a podcast or an audiobook when I'm, working. So I was, prepping dinner, and I heard the click, 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 but I didn't hear the stove turn on. I just heard the click, click, click. And then I continued working, so I thought it was my ex who had come into the kitchen and he was going to help me with the food. And I turned around and there was nothing. So the stove was on, so I turned it off because I wasn't ready to use it anyways. And I had stepped out to go to the bedroom to grab something because I had something in the room that I needed. And my ex tells me, hey, do you need help in the kitchen? I'm like, yeah, sure, come on, come and help me. You can help me with the meat. So we're walking and we're talking about something. We hear something drop to the ground, like something fall, and then we hear cupboards open. Now the cupboards in this, because it's an older house, the cupboard squeaked a lot. So we turned the corner, and I froze. I froze in my tracks because I did not want to go into the kitchen, and he knew about me. He knew about some of the things that happen or that are attracted to me. And I just stopped in the middle of the living room, and I was shaking. I was sweating. The living room got so cold that you can see our breath in front of us. And he goes into the kitchen, and he's all like, come here, like yelling. And I go in there, and every cupboard door is open. You hear the ticking of the stove, which we didn't hear in the living room, and we saw the water turn on. Sorry, I keep yawning. So he was freaking out, and I'm like, calm down. We'll we'll figure it out. Just calm down. So he went and he closed all the cupboards, and I go, just don't give it any thought. Don't give it any energy. It's gonna feed off of that. And he looked at me. He's all like, how can you be so calm? I go, I grew up in a house. This is normal for me. Cupboards opening, things moving, things being turned on is normal because I grew up in a house that frequent a lot. And he's all like, okay. Sorry, I keep yawning. And as we progressed, and as we were making dinner, and we were cooking, and we were cleaning, we heard a knock at the front door. So, of course, he goes to the front door, and he says that he saw this shadow stand in front of the door. And I've always told him, when it comes to stuff like this, invisible knocks, phantom smells, don't acknowledge it. And he comes to the kitchen and he's all, there's something outside. So me being me, I go out through the back door. I go around the side of the house or by the driveway. I go to the front. And there's nothing. So I walk the property, trying to see if there was something on the property, if it was transient, if it was, sent by somebody else. But I couldn't pick up anything. I wasn't getting any mental images. I wasn't getting any indication that there was something. He opens the door and he grabs me and he tells me to be quiet and follow him to the kitchen. So I follow him to the kitchen, and in the kitchen there was this little girl looking at, like, facing the window by the sink. She was looking out the window. And we had a dog at that time, and it was a miniature pinscher. And she came running in from the outside, and she sat down and she looked up toward where this little girl was. And excuse me, and she was like, hi doggy, what's your name? Like little conversations little kids would have. But the voice is what scared him more. It wasn't the typical little kid voice. It was like a mix. It was a mix, like not really young, but not older. It was just, it had that tone in it. And he started to freak out. And I go to the room, I grab some stuff, I come back, and he's sweating up a storm, and he's all like, it feels like somebody's touching me. And I close my eyes, I ground myself, and I kind of clear my mind and to get images to see if anything would come through. And the first thing that hit me was a top hat man, which was, I call him the top hat man, but it is an older gentleman, sinister, wrinkly face. Like, he's an older gentleman. He wears a top hat like the Monopoly dude or the peanut guy. And he was talking, and I was repeating everything I heard. And my ex was freaking out because he knew about a lot of things, but he didn't know that sometimes I can communicate with them directly, or they can communicate through me. And I was getting these strange mental images of like land, like a farmland. There was a canal or a channel. There was a little girl and a farmer, and then there was an accident, and somehow, some way, the tractor that the farmer was driving rolled from a certain area on the land that was angled, and it crushed the little girl, and then it rolled into the canal, and the farmer, died. And my ex noticed that I was squeezing his hand harder and harder and harder, and I started to tremble. I was shaking like it was an icebox, but I wasn't cold. It was just that fear that this being can project. It can throw your worst fears back at you. So, I opened my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, there was nothing in the kitchen. And my ex would ask me, what happened? What did it want? And I go, it was just transient, and it's not going to come back. And he just looked at me. He was calling my bullshit, basically. And I go, we need to clean the house. We're going to do a cleansing. And for that, we're going to need some animals, and we're going to need some eggs, and we're going to need some herbs. We're going to need some fabric. We're going to need some salt and some brick dust. And he's looking at me, and he knew my background, but he never actually saw me perform something or do something in a sense of trying to protect where I live. So we started from the very back of the house, and we went through all the bedrooms. He went from the kitchen at the opposite end of the house, and we all brought it, we cleansed and we brought everything to the main door and out the front door. And there was, everything was brought to the front door. Then I prepared some candles, some herbs and stuff like that to give a cleansing. So we did all that, and the house seemed to not settle, but it felt okay. So we go to bed, we eat dinner, we go to bed. It was around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, I want to say, because he would wake up to go to work at 4:30. So he would wake up at 4:30 so he can get ready to go to work, and then I would wake up at 5. So it was between 3:30 and 4:30 when we hear this banging on the wall. Now, in order for the banging to happen, there would have to be somebody else in the house with us, and they would have to be on the other side of the wall. So they would have to be in the spare room. And I didn't hear it at first, but then I started smelling the lavender and I started smelling the cigars. So I knew my grandfather was coming through. And I woke up to this pounding on the wall where he was already sitting in bed. He was freaking out. He didn't know what was going on. And I looked at him and I'm like, how long has this been going on? And why didn't you wake me up? He's all like, it started with the tap and then it just went into full swing. So we get up. I grab my white candle. I grab a couple other things and we walk into that room. That room was very heavy. And when I mean heavy, it affected me in a gazillion ways. I have mental battles, mental chaos, and this thing went to town. I began to feel anger. I began to feel hatred. I was hearing a lot of words that were directed to me, so I can do to my ex. And I told my ex, and he's like, what? And I go, to be exact, it's telling me to take a knife and stab you. And I said it with such a serious face that it scared him. Like, I didn't blink. My pupils were dilated. Like, I said it in a way that creeped him out. And he, called a couple people, and they came to the house, and we did a whole freaking like a massive cleansing and stuff like that. The encounter kept happening. We would see shadow figures. We would see the little girl, the top hat guy. There were also the noises, the opening and closing of cabinet doors. The refrigerator would open, we would close, the stove would turn on. Things, that were very unsettling. So this particular night, I was home alone, and I hate being home alone. When I was married to my ex, I never wanted to stay home alone. I never wanted to stay home alone because it was just the energy in the house was so bad that a lot of dark thoughts started to race through my mind, and trying to separate yourself and ground yourself, and that's not my thought, that's not me, I don't think that, but it starts to take effect on you. So I had called my husband, and he was just down the street with a friend. They were watching a Raider game, and I called him, and he didn't answer. So I left a message, and I had told him, hey, I'm not feeling like myself right now. I'm going to go to bed. Hopefully I can shake whatever is going on. And I, grab my dog. I take the dog with me to the room. The dog didn't want to go into the room. I had to coax him into the room, and once he was into the room, he would not leave my side. He was growling. I finally got him to calm down, and just these dark thoughts were running through my head. I don't want to mention any of the thoughts because that could be triggering to people, and then I don't want to trigger them. But a lot of these things were just racing through my mind, racing through my mind, racing through my mind. And, it was trying to convince me that I would be doing the right thing. Now, for somebody who battles depression and whose, main issue is depression, these thoughts are not good. So I had texted him and I go, hey, can you come home? Because I'm in a really, really, really dark place. And I don't think I'll be able to be by myself if it has its way. And of course he ignored me because it's a Raiders. It was so dark that when he did show up, he freaked out because of the things he saw. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about that because it is very triggering, and the last thing I need is to trigger somebody, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to trigger anybody. So we had contact. I had to go in for a hold because of it. And then after I got out of my hold, we had gone to the church and had a priest come out and bless the house and everything. And even the priest was like, this house is not very friendly. And I'm using the word friendly in air quotes. It's not very friendly. It's not a nice place. There's something dark here. So the house gets blessed. My then best friend at that time would come and stay with me because my ex was afraid that I would do something seriously dangerous and that I would not be around anymore. And he wanted to avoid a psychiatric hold. So my friend showed up and I was laying on the sofa, and I remember taking a nap with my dog, and he was sitting on the other end of the sofa, and he said that I got up, I walked through the kitchen, walked out the back door, and stood in the middle of the yard, swaying back and forth, back and forth. He took a video of this, and the video no longer exists because this happened about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And he said that I kept mumbling stuff that didn't make any sense. And he had called my ex, and he came home right away, and he was more concerned that whatever was in the house had finally attached itself to me. Because no matter if I was home or if I was at my mom's house or if I was at work, I had those racing thoughts. I wanted to do the things I was being told that I needed to do. And it was difficult. This was a difficult period. 1, in my marriage. 2, in my personal mental stability. And it was just straight up difficult. So we had the house blessed a second time. And then I had a priest bless me. And then I had a cleansing for myself. And after, a couple months, everything was fine. We had no activity. I was getting better. I wasn't in my lows. My mental stability was getting better. I wasn't missing so much work. I was going to work constantly and stuff like that. Then one day I get home and I just had a breakdown. Literally, I pull into the driveway, I get out of the car, I go to the front door, I touch the door handle, the doorknob, and just touching it gave me a mental breakdown. So I saw a shitload of things running through my mind. I saw a funeral, I saw myself in a casket, I saw a lot of things. So I went to my car and I sat in my car. I pulled my car out of the driveway and I parked across the street. And I called my ex. And I was crying. I was literally bawling because it was just overwhelming. It was too much for me to handle. And he came home and he looked at me, he's all like, we can't do this anymore. And I go, I know we can't. There's like no way we can continue with, a couple months we have no issues and then it resurfaces, and in a couple months it hits and it resurfaces. So we moved from there to another location. We didn't have anything follow us. We didn't have anything attached to us, because the very first thing I did was, before we put anything in the house, I walked through the house, I did a cleansing. I basically blessed the house. I saged it to kingdom come. I didn't want anything in the house. And, we didn't bring, a lot of the stuff that was from our old house, for the reason that we didn't want to bring whatever was there that might have attached itself to our stuff to the new place. So, we got new furniture, we got new stuff. It cost us a lot of money, but we got, new stuff. And we were there for like a couple of years maybe. And we didn't have any encounters. We had nothing. The house gave off a different energy from the first house. So I was more at ease than I was at the previous house. So when people say their house is haunted or their house gives off a weird energy, there are places that do that, and I've encountered and lived in one. I grew up in one, lived in one. Well, lived in a couple, but you don't know till you live in a place. Sometimes it's like you go look at a place, or you walk by a place, and you're like, that house is creepy. You don't know why it is, but it's creepy. It gives you that energy, that vibe. Well, that was my story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on all podcasting platforms. If there's a platform that you would like us to be on, please shoot us an email, DM us on Insta or Twitter, send us a Facebook, send us a Snap, and we'll get on that platform. To the new listeners and to the old listeners, thank you very much. I appreciate you downloading and listening to my episodes. It brings me joy to know that some people find my stuff entertaining. That's the purpose, is to be entertained. My stories, I got a gazillion stories. Um, I just hope you guys all enjoy it. And with that being said, stay safe. Make sure if you're in California, Oregon, or Washington, please stay safe. The fires are out of control. So protect, your house, protect, your animals. If you have animals, big animals, horses, cows, goats, make sure you take them to the proper location, that will house them till the fires are over. So, with that being said, don't forget to keep it ghosting. And the seance room is now closed. So, with this coronavirus epidemic that we have going on, you have many celebrities, you have actors coming in and joining the podcast community, and you want to jump into it. Well, if you haven't heard, there's a program that you can use called Anchor, now, which is the easiest way to create a podcast. It's free. Um, there's a whole bunch of creation tools that allow you to record, edit your podcast from your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your computer. Um, it'll even distribute them for you. So it'll be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other podcast platforms. You can make money with your podcast with no minimum listenership. Like I said, we have a lot of celebrities, we have a lot of actors, actresses joining the podcast community. So they'll be making money because of their followers. Well, you can do it too. You could have 2 followers and still be making money. So it's an easy way to join the podcast community because this program lets you um, make money with no minimum listenership. And it has everything you need from podcast program all rolled into one. So if you want to join the community, don't forget to download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and get started. Join us independent um, podcasters along with the celebrities and the actors and the actresses who are on the podcast community. So don't forget to download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.